자, 두 번째로는 멀리 계신 네덜란드의 마이클 니우베스텍이라는 분을 모시고 저희가 강연을 들었으면 좋겠는데 또 먼 관계로 영상으로 모시게 되었습니다. 이분의 이제 여러 가지 화려한 그 이력 경력이 많으신데 다 생략하고 우선 포장계에서 또 유럽피안 유니언, 유럽 소사이어티에서 굉장히 큰 역할을 하고 일생을 이제 계속 포장에 관여하고 계시는 분입니다. 지금 그 현재 소속은 NVC 네덜란드 패키징 센터, 그 앞에 NVC는 이제 네덜란드어로 패키징 센터라는 거를 약어로 항상 붙이는 기관입니다. 그래서 그 네덜란드 패키징 센터에서 매니징 디렉터로 일하고 계시고요. 오늘 그 발표해 주실 내용은 Perspectives on Eco-Conscious Packaging, the European Policy and the Worldwide PUMA Project. PUMA 프로젝트에 대해서 설명이 나올 거로 생각해서 제가 그거는 안 하고 저도 이 강연을 본 다음에 혹시 없으면 약간 부연 설명드리겠습니다. 그러면 강연 시청하시겠습니다. 네. 네. 자료 43쪽에 번역본이 있고요. 이왕에 이제 말이 나온 김에 그럼 푸마 선언문이라는 것과 채택이 돼서 2020년에 만들어져서 여러 나라의 언어로 번역이 되어 있습니다. 그 선언문의 골자는 패키징으로 인한 환경 문제를 해결하기 위해 전 세계가 함께 합니다. 그거에 대한 쓰임을 이야기를 해주실 것으로 압니다.
Good morning, Korea. This is the studio of NVC Packaging Center in Gouda in the Netherlands, and I'm Michaël Nieuwesteeg, and it's a big pleasure for me to be here with you on a video presentation talking about the perspectives on eco-conscious packaging, specifically the way the European policy is being shaped at the moment, and about the PUMA project. I'm very happy to be at the 63rd CodePast Spring Conference, and I wish you a very nice conference these 2 days. And I hope, apart from this presentation, that all the other presentations will also be successful. Okay, for the next slide. This is the NVC Packaging Center. So we are based in the Netherlands, and you get the slides also from the organization. And our payoff is sharing the future in packaging. And we really would like to share the future in packaging with all the packaging people in Korea, of course. We have 4 colors of activities. The blue is the information services. There we provide reliable information. The pink is all our innovation projects. One of them is the PUMA project. The orange is about the education. That's about our workshops, courses, and course program. And the green is about getting in touch with each other and finding the market information. And you really can trust us. You can trust my heart. We really love Korea. And actually, in terms of packaging, I would really state that NVC and the PUMA project is totally close to CodePast and all the goals that you are striving for. And actually, here in Holland, when we think about Korea, we think about beautiful things like electric cars, like Samsung phones, and actually the recent film that was the multi-award winner at the Oscar ceremony, we watched it already on Netflix. So thank you for the films as well, Korea. Now, what are we going to do today? We are going to address 4 topics. We are going to look back to the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive that was launched in Europe in 1994, so that's 30 years ago. Then we are going to look to the upcoming legislation, the Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation, that will probably get into force by 2024. Then we view the PUMA project, and we will enjoy the launch of the Korean edition of the PUMA Manifesto. And then we will share some follow-ups. Now, looking back to 1994, or better, let's look a little bit further back to the Eurasian continent and to Europe, which is part of the same continent that you are on. And that's about 20,000 years ago. And what you see here, that it was a bigger continent those days because the sea was more than 100 meters lower. And at the same time, people in that part of our continent were painting beautiful paintings, like you see this animal here in caves. They are now in the south of France. Beautiful pieces of art by mankind in the Eurasian continent 20,000 years ago. And you could easily walk from the Netherlands to England. You see, there was no sea there. Also, to put Europe a little bit in perspective, this is the Benelux, this is Netherlands. This is what would happen when you would put the whole of the world in the single continent of Africa. Yeah, the United States, China, India, France. Yeah. Geographically speaking, Europe is not very big. In terms of population, I would like to share these data with you. Yeah, it's a continent which is populated all over the place, but most of the people live here. And we are quite aging, like Korea is doing. Of course, we all had the COVID-19 pandemic. This photo was made in a vaccination center around us here. And you can see, okay, people were working on these vaccines. AstraZeneca, Oxford, here is BioNTech and Pfizer together. And maybe you don't know that in Korea, but a company like BioNTech was founded and headed by a couple that is really from Turkish immigrants that went to Germany in their previous generation. So there's a lot of mixing of people and cultures around these days, and of successful mixing. Of course, also in this conference, we share the same continent, we share the same problems. In this case, we really have a horrible war going on in Ukraine, and hopefully this will be ended by this year. Now for the European Union, yeah, which is not the same as Europe from a geographical point of view, we can state that it's quite a big economy. We have about 447 million people there, and it would be the third economy in terms of money when you compare that to the United States of America and China. And now to 1994, this is the text from the 1994 European Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, as it was published on the 20th of December 1994. And Europe was looking a little bit like this those days. There was a famous German Minister of Environment. Her name was Angela Merkel. She was then responsible for the introduction of the legislation. We have a European Song Festival every year. That year it was won by Ireland. And the most popular car on the European roads those days was a petrol-fired Volkswagen Polo. So we were in the gasoline petrol area. Angela Merkel was then a Minister of Environment, and we still had our Eurovision Song Festival. And since then, what has happened? We have put efforts on, getting empty packs back, getting it collected, and getting them into some sort of recycling stream. And here I share with you the results after, I would say, 25 years of Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive in terms of packaging recycling rates for the European Union. So, looking back, we can state that in 1994 an effort was launched in the European Union to do something on the environment, and that has resulted in quite a lot of recycling of materials for the better or the worse. And now the next step is being made, and that's the Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation. So the difference is in the R. This is regulation, this is directive. Regulation is more direct. National countries are not allowed to implement their own legislation on top of a directive. So it's a lot of direct saying from Brussels, this should be done. It's a proposal by the European Commission that has to be voted in through all those democratic institutions that Europe has. The king man of this effort is Mr. Frans Timmermans. He's the Vice President of the European Union, and he's also responsible for the so-called Green Deal. So this is Mr. Timmermans. And he is launching a lot of environmental and planetary measures. Well, our famous lady here is Mrs. Helen Crow. Maybe you know her already. I will actively refer to her in this part of the presentation because she is our specialist on the issue with her team. She is also the one who knows everything about the information and the legislation behind it. And she created the next part of the presentation that I'm going to share with you. Nicely referencing Timmermans. Now, what Helen did for us, she chopped the whole packaging and packaging waste regulation into its constituent parts. So there are 12 chapters, 64 articles, 170 pages, and 8 annexes. Yeah, and you can run them through step by step. There is the general objective, and that's of course to reduce negative environmental impacts of packaging and packaging waste, and to improve, very important, the functioning of the internal market. That is a dirty little detail that is often forgotten. So it's also the way that national states cannot implement extra additional measures on top of a regulation. So it's a big harmonizing effort, which is very important if you are exporting from Korea, like say products, and you have to do labeling for different European countries. Of course, it's proposal, yeah, and the legal construct is defined here. Now, there are some general provisions, not so relevant for this moment, but you can read them and the link will be available for you. Then there are the sustainability requirements. They are on recyclable packaging and the minimum recycled content in plastic packaging, compostable packaging, packaging minimization, and reusable packaging. Article 7 specifies the minimum recycled content in plastic packaging. There is a lot more effort on plastics than on other materials, I can tell you. 30% use of recycled content for contact-sensitive packaging made from PET. 10% for contact-sensitive packaging made from plastic other than PET. 30% required recycled content for single-use plastic beverage bottles. And 35% recycled content for other plastic packaging, which notably also might include sectors that are not so much addressed at the moment. On compostable packaging, there is a generic type of text, but also very specific products are mentioned. Tea or coffee bags, very lightweight plastic carrier bags, sticky labels attached to fruit and vegetables, like these. Then there is packaging minimization. That's of course an issue which is a paradox because a pack never will have the weight 0 because then we don't talk packaging anymore. That's the issue that also was handled in the ISO standards discussions. Yeah. The Commission tries to really sharpen that discussion by striving to create a new sort of standard or an improved sort of standard with regard to the ISO standard that already has been created to define where you should stop adding packaging materials to a product. Then there is the labeling, marking and information. There is the article on the labeling of packaging. There is the article on the labeling of waste receptacles. That's of course needed to be able to see what we are doing and that you see what you are collecting, that it comes into a stream. Then we have chapter 4, obligations of economic operators. That's the business. Manufacturers, suppliers of packaging, authorized representatives, importers, fulfillment service providers, and distributors. I would say retailers. Yeah. Those all get requirements under the umbrella of the extended producer responsibility, EPR, which means that somebody who's putting a product on the market also carries some responsibility further than only getting the money and having the product sold. For e-commerce, specific irritation at the Commission, so many air being shipped. And for other formats, suddenly it gets very specific. in hotel sectors or in other sectors, the Commission would say, we don't want to see those anymore. Like little soaps in hotels, like throwaway packs in takeaway food, like wraparound packs that enables you to that sort of stimulates you to buy 3 or 4 or 5 products at the same time, which are said to be of no use. And for use and refill targets, and also for the white goods sectors and for big products, there's a whole discussion raised on whether these packs should be reusable or whether they should be refillable. Plastic carrier bags is another issue. There's a fixed figure in it. The annual consumption of lightweight plastic carrier bags cannot exceed 40 lightweight plastic carrier bags per person, or the equivalent target in weight per year. So, interesting figure. Conformity is also very important, of course. Yeah. So how do you test it? How do you really prove the presumption of conformity? And how do you define the common technical specifications? And of course, you have to do a DOC, a declaration of conformity, which then shows that you are in line with these regulations. Last but not least, Chapter 7, the management. So there is a competent authority that is looking into it. You have to have an early warning report. There's prevention of waste, register of producers, extended producer responsibility, there you are, and so on and so forth, up to the deposit and the return systems. And of course, when you say deposit and return, there is also reuse and refill. So you have to define and to design your pack when it's capable to be refilled or to be reused, and then you have to define your number of trips and rotations. Then there are the overall targets. They are of less importance for an individual company, but they of course are politically relevant. Yeah, and you can see them here. So the Commission strives to get the recycling targets up by the 31st of December 2030, 70%, 55%, 30%, 80%, 60%, 75%, 85% of the different materials. Notably saying that after publication of this proposal on the 20th of November 2022, 30th of November 2022, a report has been issued by the Research Institute of the European Union that the definition of recycling was still quite fuzzy. And especially also the definition of the quality of recycling is lacking. So these are interesting percentages, but the discussion has meanwhile started on what is recycling actually and what is the quality of the product that you would like to have when you do material recycling. Now we are nearly coming to the end of the packaging and packaging waste regulation proposal. Yeah, delegated acts. And I would say for any other questions and related remarks, back to Helen Crow again. Here is her email address. And I also will show you an information service that is available where these topics are covered, not only for the European Union, but actually for many more regions. Moving into that direction, this is the information services that you can use. And there is also a LinkedIn group where Helen is active, where she is sharing the information. Now, third point of the lecture, and also with big gratitude to several high-end packaging professionals in Korea and outside Korea in the Korean language domain who have helped there, we are going into the Puma Manifesto. I'm going to explain to you what it is, but also I'm going to share you what you have done from the Korean language in getting it into your language domain. Now, very important for the Puma Manifesto and the Puma project is that we really have a look at sustainability. So that's people, profit, and planet. And of course, we always make a joke and we say, so profit is the most important. That's not true, but that's also not true. Because if you mention them all three, They all have their interdependence. And I would say, as we started with the graph of the European Union, how it looked 10,000 years ago, the best thing you might notice is that they are time dependent. So the money is a very quick issue. Planetary issues are very slow. And human people issues are moderate in time. The Puma Manifesto and the Puma project is addressing the planet. So it's addressing the environmental issues. Those are not the natural disasters. So a volcano eruption or an earthquake or something like that is not an environmental issue. That's a natural disaster. But an environmental issue is an issue that's created to the planet Earth of a negative impact by mankind. That's something we do ourselves. So that's also something we should be able to solve ourselves. All the problems that we have created ourselves are always the ones that also should be solved by us. So that's the vision about the Puma Manifesto and the Puma project. And basically, our challenge is to solve the Rubik's Cube. Yeah, everybody is interconnected. And we want to solve the cube without forgetting the fact that on the backside there is somebody who is sort of dependent on the fact that we solve something on the front side. And now back to the relation between the Puma project and the European efforts and all our efforts. So this is Mr. Timmermans. And he has 240,000 followers on Twitter. So that's quite a lot, isn't it? He's a quiet guy. But at the same time, we as a business world community organizing world football championships. And every press conference, there is a plastic bottle in the image here. So this is also strong communication. So it's not about saying negative or positive. It's just about noticing that the world is a complex place and that on the one hand, we are communicating environmental things from this perspective. And at the same time, we are communicating the need for water in a bottle during a press conference in a World Football Championship. So there is a tension there. So for that reason, we have created with more than 350 people now from all countries all over the world, a manifesto that is addressing it in a way that doesn't cut people out. And that's the Puma Manifesto. And the goal is to work together to the end of packaging as an environmental issue. And your Korean edition is available now. It's online. You can just download it. It's for free. If you look to the database, you can also see who are the co-authors. I really want to thank them all for all the efforts they've spent in creating this wonderful Korean language document on the future of packaging and environment in the world from a Korean perspective. Yeah, you can download it and then you can see there's a specific model in it, specific wording. Actually, you don't even see the word recycling in it. There's specific wording on the back-end processing. There is the accessibility to a live online globally available workshop. And you can see some references to actions that have been done and where also Korea has been active. So this was, for instance, the ISO meeting in 2010. And your famous conference chairman, Mr. GK, is there. Yeah. And the same holds for a meeting that was held later in Atlanta. And this photo was made in the headquarters of Coca-Cola. We were there and we co-created this space of thinking. Actually, you can also find references to the ISO standards here with their documents and also with the way that your business can work on it. And also what you see is that a lot of innovations are taking place, like our bronze winner of our Packaging Innovation Award, where you really have the LanzaTech process by a group in Switzerland now implemented into using CO2 as a source of material for ethanol, which then is used to create one of the components of the PET for the PET bottles. Yeah, so even CO2 is now being used as a source for materials. And the same, of course, for steel. Of course, Korea is also very strong in steel. And now this North Swedish factory of, well, in the north of Sweden is now starting to produce their first fossil-free steel using hydropower. And then with electrolysis creating hydrogen, and the hydrogen is then used for reducing of the iron ore. And things like this are also being done now with aluminum in the States. Information will be key. Yeah. Information is maybe the new degree of freedom that will enable us to solve the issues. This is an app that is being used in the Netherlands on your Samsung phone. You can nicely scan any pack. It recognizes the pack, it recognizes the barcode, and it advises you where to dispose of that pack. And also at NVC, we did a big research project with 20 University, where we followed beer bottles from the moment that they were filled in the beer brewery up to the moment that they were actually disposed in the glass bins by the users with a code and with trace and track software. Also now there is a relation with the politics, of course, because we want to be influencing how is recycling being defined, what is recycling, and how are we going to use the terminology as successfully implemented in the Puma manifesto. And finally, we will get this all together in the 7th annual meeting of the Puma project, but that will be at the Sheraton Düsseldorf Airport Hotel on Wednesday, the 3rd of May 2023, the day before the Interpack. But it also will be live hybrid, so you can go either physically and visit the conference in the Sheraton at the Düsseldorf Airport, or you can just stay at home or any place on the world and you follow it live hybrid, fully interactive, together with us from the Sheraton. Now, last statement. I hope that the whole NVC team and the Puma team, together with all the people from the Korea Institute and with all the people who have worked on this project, are able to share their visions in this presentation. I hope you can reference this, and I hope it has been a worthwhile source of information for all of you at the conference. And I would like to close off and say hope we will meet somewhere at the Korean conference or at the Interpack or any other NVC activity. And on behalf of the whole NVC team, I would like to say thank you very much for listening to this conference, listening to this presentation, and sharing your insights with us. Thank you very much, Korea. Good luck and have a great day.
큰 박수로 감사 인사를 영상이지만 드립니다. 마이클 뉴베스텍 그 박사님께서 푸마라고 이야기 일컬는 거를 테마로 해서 쭉 좋은 강연을 주셨는데, 이제 특히 유로피안 유니온에서 유럽 소사이어티에서 어떻게 재활용 그 계획을 가고 있는지 쭉 볼 수 있는 시간이었습니다. 그 푸마라는 동물의 형상을 곳곳에서 그림을 보셨을 겁니다. PUMA. 그래서 그거가 이제 풀 네임은 Packaging Upcyclability Materials Accelerator. 거기에서 따서 푸마를 했고, 푸마라는 동물 여러분 잘 아시죠? 굉장히 단번에 하이 점프를 하면서 굉장히 빠른 속도로, 시속 70km인가 굉장히 빠른 속도로 질주를 합니다. 엑셀러레이터를 아주 잘하는 동물이에요. 그래서 우리 여기서 지금 이제 업사이클링에는 이미 이제 리사이클도 포함이 되어 있잖아요. 그러니까 리사이클을 넘어서 업사이클까지도 이야기를 하시고 있는 거고, 그 푸마 선언문이 아까 제가 말씀드렸던 것처럼 다시 읽어드리면, 패키징으로 인한 환경 문제를 해결하기 위해 전 세계가 함께 합니다. 그겁니다. 그래서 이거는 어떤 로컬의 어떤 뭐 선진국의 이러한 게 아니라, 아까 큐브로도 말씀을 하셨는데, 앞쪽에 큐브가 잘 맞춰지는데 뒤에서 어긋나면 이거는 시간이 너무나 많이 걸리고 더 오리무중이 될 수 있어요. 그래서 전 세계가 푸마 프로젝트에 동참하는 거지 유럽에서 지금 시작이 되었을 뿐이지 우리도 같이 가고 있는 겁니다. 그래서 이러한 그 생각과 앞으로 가고 있는 푸마의 상징적인 그 동물의 의미 떠올리시면서 저희도 감량과 또 재활용에 대해서 속도를 낼 수 있으면 좋겠습니다. 그리고 우리 학회장님, 김종경 학회장님, 그 다음에 또 포럼의 신양재 회장님, 특히 신양재 회장님께서는 뭐 일생을 포장에 대해서 쭉 담고 계셔서 우리 국내에서 아주 1인자라고 제가 말씀을 감히 드릴 수 있겠는데, 이러한 그 국제적인 추세에도 아주 같이 잘 가고 계십니다. 그래서 그 국가기관이나 아니면 산업체에서 여러 가지 그 산업이 이만큼 가고 있는데 규제가 그 어떤 아까 제가 규제 말씀드린 거는 이거는 우리가 산업진흥 잘 가고자 하는 규제입니다. 그게 늦게 가도 안 되고, 그 다음에 규제 때문에 발목이 잡혀서 산업이 늦으면 다른 나라하고 우리가 경쟁을 할 수가 없어요. 그래서 이러한 것들이 잘 그 맞물려서 가는 그러한 사회를 위해서 저희가 모두 여기 앉아 있다고 생각합니다. 약간 시간이 남아서 제가 부연 설명을 드린 거고요. 그 질문 여러 가지 있으시면 포럼을 통해서 또는 학회를 통해서 질문해 주시면 어제 영상도 그렇고 오늘 영상도 그렇고 저희가 항상 그러한 그 답변을 대신 그 전달해 드리고 답을 받아서 할 수 있는 그 충분한 그 도움을 드릴 수 있도록 노력을 하겠습니다. 두 번째 발표는 이것으로 마치겠습니다. 감사합니다.